The property mogul paid S. 200,000 for a horseno in Tame. He called the best horse handlers in Singapore. One left with a broken rib. Another ended up in the hospital. So he should an open challenge. S. 50,000 to anyone who could break the animal. Burly men appeared, experienced stable managers, seasoned equestrian riders. But the one who silenced the entire estate was none of them. It was a 22-year-old girl who arrived on foot, without saddle or spurs, with a piece of gula melaka in her pocket. In Kranji, a quiet corner on the edge of the city, everyone knew who held sway. It wasn't the local MP, nor the religious leader. It was Mr. Tan Kian Seng, owner of vast properties that stretched as far as the eye could see, and a main estate house that looked more like a set from a drama series. Mr. Tan was in his early 70s, with slicked back white hair, hands calloused from past work, but which for a long time only pointed and commanded. He always wore designer polo shirts, bespoke leather shoes, and had a gaze that made any employee lower their head before he even opened his mouth. But what defined Mr. Tan was not his money. It was the way he treated people. For him, the world was divided into two types of people: those who have and those who serve. Half the community depended on him, in some way. The local businesses relied on his contracts, the stable hands worked on his properties, and Mr. Tan collected on every favor, with glances and words dropped at precisely the right moment. Challenging Mr. Tan had consequences. He never threatened with violence. He cut credit, withdrew contracts. And in a community where his estate was the engine of almost everything, being on Mr. Tan's blacklist was like being expelled without leaving your place. It was into this scenario that Thunder appeared, a purebred Lusitano stallion that Mr. Tan bought at a prestigious equestrian auction in Europe for over $200,000. Its coat was black as a moonless night, musculature that seemed sculpted, a bearing of an animal born knowing it was special. Mr. Tan brought the horse in a specialized air-conditioned float, with a veterinarian accompanying it. And when the beast disembarked at the estate, half the community was there to see. He named the animal Thunder, and immediately started telling anyone who would listen that this horse would be the biggest star in the region. It would put Kranji on the map, win exhibitions, competitions, and be the most valued breeding stallion in the country. The problem was that Thunder didn't agree with any of these plans. From the very first day, the horse showed who he was. He wouldn't let anyone near him. The stable hands were afraid just to enter the paddock. Thunder bit, kicked, reared, threw his body against the wooden fence with such force that the planks cracked. The animal's eyes held something none of the employees could quite explain, but which all of them felt: rage. An ancient rage of a creature that had been beaten, forced, and had people trying to break him with brutality. Thunder trusted no human, and showed it with every muscle in his body. Mr. Tan was not a man to accept defeat. He hired the most famous horse trainer in the region, a man named Mr. Lim, who charged $5,000 a day and boasted of never having failed. He entered the paddock confidently. In less than 20 seconds, he was on the ground with a dislocated shoulder. Mr. Tan called another, a specialist from an exclusive Bukit Timah riding club, who lasted 30 seconds before a kick sent him to the hospital. He called another and another. He brought in people from 3 different equestrian centers. None lasted more than a minute. Some left limping, others needed medical attention, and each failed attempt cost money, and much worse, Mr. Tan's reputation, because the entire community was following along. And the comments began. First, softly in the market queue, after prayers, then louder at the hawker center, in conversations at the void decks. Mr. Tan bought a $200,000 horse. That's useless. It's a beautiful beast, but it's crazy. He spent a fortune on an animal not even fit for a photo. The chuckles were discreet but present. And if there was one thing Mr. Tan couldn't stand, more than losing money, more than being contradicted, it was being the subject of ridicule. It burned inside him like embers. It was on one of those nights, after yet another failed attempt, that Mr. Tan made his decision. He sat alone on the estate house veranda, a cup of copio in his hand, and pride burning in his chest. If no professional could do it, then he would turn it into a spectacle. He would show the whole community that the problem wasn't the horse. The problem was that there was no one up to the task. The next morning, he had enormous banners printed and displayed throughout Kranji, on street corners, in front of the community center, at the market, at the coffee shop. The message was simple and direct. Open challenge. Whoever mounts and tames the horse, Thunder wins S. 50,000, Kashon to spot. This Saturday, At the Tanquianseng Estate, Uan, in a community where most families lived on modest incomes, that number was almost unreal. The news spread faster than wildfire in a dry field. In 2 days, nothing else was talked about. At the coffee shop, in the parks, at the gates of neighboring estates, everyone commented. Trainers from other cities were already sending messages, saying they were coming. Equestrians who thought they were good enough were already preparing. And Mr. Tan, in the middle of a circle of men at the coffee shop, sipping his coffee and savoring the attention, uttered the phrase that sealed everything. "I've already called the best, and none succeeded. Now I want to see if there's at least one real person in this city." The phrase swept through Kranji like wind before a storm and reached a humble HDB flat, so unremarkable it barely stood out, where a two-year-old girl cared for an old, nondescript pony that any breeder would have long since sent for culling. Aisha heard about the $50,000, about the impossible horse, about Mr. Tan's phrase, and felt something she couldn't explain, but which made her heart pound in her chest. But between her and that paddock was an obstacle greater than any wild horse. Her father, and convincing Mr. Rahman, was going to be almost as difficult as taming thunder. The Rahman's flat was at the end of a long corridor in an old HDB block, where water stains marked the ceiling in several places. The modest living room had 2 worn sofas and a small potted plant near the window. In the small utility area, Aisha carefully tended to her father's small collection of pet birds. She cared for them every day before sunrise. Mr. Rahman was in his early 60s, but his body seemed like 80. His hands were thick and calloused, his spine already curved from years of carrying heavy loads. He walked slowly, coughing dryly in the early hours, a cough he disguised by pretending to clear his throat. Aisha heard it every night and pretended not to, knowing that if she asked, he would say it was nothing. His wife, Madame Zaitan, died when Aisha was still a girl, from pneumonia that started as a flu and worsened because the polyclinic was far and Mr. Rahman didn't have money for the right medication. He took Madame Zaitan in a taxi to the hospital, in heavy rain, and by the time they arrived, it was too late. Since that day, Mr. Rahman raised his daughter alone. He taught her to be resourceful, to care for animals, to fix things around the house, not to be ashamed of dirty hands. And Aisha learned all this. And one more thing Mr. Rahman never taught, because he didn't know how: horses. Her passion began at 7, when a neighbor brought a sick pony to the community stable she frequented, asking Mr. Rahman to look after it while he traveled. The pony was thin, scared, trembling whenever anyone approached. Aisha spent 3 days sitting outside the paddock, without entering, without forcing anything. On the 4th day, the pony came to her. On the 5th, it let Aisha touch its neck. On the 6th, it ate corn from her palm. The neighbor returned and couldn't believe it. He said that pony hadn't let anyone touch it for months. From then on, Aisha never stopped. She observed every horse that passed through the region. She learned to read an animal's body as one reads a face. She knew when a horse was scared, when it was testing, when it was asking for trust. She didn't use a whip, didn't use spurs, didn't use shouts. She used patience, silence, and touch. It was a gift. The pony she had now was named Starlight, a mixed breed, faded coat, already old. Any breeder would have sold her for culling long ago, but Aisha treated Starlight as if she were family. She brushed her every day, talked to her, and Starlight obeyed Aisha as if she understood every word. A touch on the mane, a low murmur, and the pony would do what Aisha wanted, without reins, without anything. When the news of Mr. Tan's challenge reached their flat, it was from Tonino, the delivery rider who brought groceries from the city and carried news back. Aisha was preparing tea when Tonino stopped his scooter at the corridor and shouted, "Aisha, did you hear? Mr. Tan is offering 50,000 to whoever tames his crazy horse. Next Saturday at the estate. People from everywhere are coming." Aisha didn't answer immediately. She finished preparing tetea, took the cups inside, and stood in the kitchen, looking out the window at Teski, where Starlight, in her mind, grazed peacefully. Simana, 50,000. With $50,000, she could pay off her father's debts, fix the leaking roof, buy the medicines Mr. Rahman needed and pretended he didn't. There would be enough to replace the old water heater. Enough left over to ensure food for the family and Starlight for a long time. But it wasn't just the money. There was something else. A quiet certainty deep in her chest. She knew how to deal with horses in a way no saddled and spurred trainer knew. And when Tonino described thunder, the rage, the trainers falling one after another, Aisha didn't feel fear. She felt she understood that animal without ever having been near it. A horse that attacks everyone isn't a bad horse. It's a horse that has been hurt too much and decided it would never let anyone control it again. At dinner, rice with sambal and fried egg, Aisha placed the plate in front of her father and sat down. Mr. Rahman looked at her and knew, after 22 years raising that girl alone, he knew when she had something to say. Speak, daughter. Father, I want to go to Mr. Tan's challenge. I want to tame the horse. Mr. Rahman dropped his fork. His face went white. Aisha, for heaven's sake, that horse has broken men's ribs, sent trainers to the hospital. Men weighing 100 kilograms with 30 years of experience. And you want to enter that paddock? Father, those men tried to defeat the horse with force. I won't do that. I'll talk to him. It's different. Talk, Aisha? That's a 500 kilograms beast that won't let anyone near it. Starlight didn't either, remember? The neighbor said she bit anyone. And I was 7. Mr. Rahman closed his eyes. He knew that was true. He knew his daughter had a gift he never quite understood, but knowing that didn't take away the fear. Starlight was a weak, old pony. Thunder was a 500 kilogram stallion that had already sent 5 men to the ground. I can't lose you, Aisha. You're all I have. Father, you're coughing all night, and you pretend I don't hear. The ceiling drips onto my bed when it rains. We're 3 months behind on our utility bills. I know you're taking on extra, poorly paid odd jobs, just to make ends meet. I know all this, and I know I can do it. Mr. Rahman didn't answer. He got up from the table, went out the back door, and sat on the small veranda. Aisha washed the dishes in silence. She knew she needed to give her father time. Forcing it wouldn't help. It was almost midnight when she went out to the veranda and found Mr. Rahman in the same spot. She sat beside him without saying anything. They listened to the crickets and the wind rustling through the leaves of the nearby trees, until Mr. Rahman spoke in a low, raspy voice. Your mother would have let you. Aisha looked at her father. His eyes were moist. Your mother always said you had something different, that you would do something that would surprise everyone. I never quite understood what she meant, but I think she knew. Aisha held her father's hand, the thick, calloused hand that trembled when she squeezed it. If you go, I'll go with you, but I won't be able to watch closely. I'll stay at the entrance. If it goes wrong, I won't be able to bear seeing it. It won't go wrong, father. Mr. Rahman didn't sleep that night. He sat on the veranda until the sky brightened, looking into the darkness, asking Zaitan, wherever she was, to do one thing for him: protect their daughter. Saturday would come, and when it did, Aisha would face much more than a wild horse. She would face the gaze of an entire community that had already decided she wasn't capable. Saturday dawned hot with that interior sun that scorches early. Aisha woke before 5, as always, but that day she didn't go to prepare tea or tend the small plants. She showered in the cramped bathroom, put on the least worn pair of jeans she had, her old worn boots, and an oversized plaid shirt of her father's. She tied her hair in a ponytail, put a piece of gula melaka in her jeans pocket, and grabbed a simple fiber rope like the one she used with Starlight. She brought no saddle, no spurs, nothing else. Mr. Rahman waited on the veranda, already dressed, his simple cap in his hand. His eyes were swollen from lack of sleep. He said nothing. He just made a gesture with his head, and the two set off walking along the dirt path. The walk to Mr. Tan's estate was almost an hour on foot. They walked in silence almost the entire time. When they could already see the estate house roof in the distance, Mr. Rahman stopped and held his daughter's arm. Aisha, if at any moment you feel you can't do it, just leave. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. I know, father. Promise? I promise. Mr. Rahman squeezed her hand, released it, and spoke softly. I'll stay at the entrance. I can't watch closely. Aisha nodded, understanding, kissed her father's forehead, and descended alone towards the estate. What she found there looked like a community festival. Hundreds of people spread across the grounds, entire families, old folks in deck chairs, young men leaning against their SUVs, food stalls serving local delights, satay on the grill. Someone had turned on a sound system with Malay pop music, but in the center of everything, in the large paddock Mr. Tan had reinforced, Thunder paced agitatedly, snorting, pawing the ground. The horse knew something was about to happen. Mr. Tan watched from a wooden platform beside the paddock, seated in a chair that looked more like a throne, wearing a new cap and a linen shirt. Beside him, on a table covered with a green cloth, the S. 50,000 was prominently displayed. The money there was not just a prize. It was Mr. Tan saying, "I have so much that leavings. 50,000 inches the sun makes no difference to my life." In front of the paddock, an inscription table with a ledger. There were already more than 20 names. Trainers from neighboring equestrian clubs, local stable hands, regional riders. Among them, Marcus Lim, a big rider with broad shoulders, who considered himself the best equestrian in Kranji and made a point of saying so to anyone who would listen. Marcus was leaning against the paddock fence, chewing on a toothpick with a small group around him. Aisha crossed the grounds alone, feeling the stares clinging to her as she advanced. A thin girl in simple clothes, walking among all those men. When she reached the inscription table and said she wanted to participate, the organizer, a portly man with a thick moustache, raised his eyes from the ledger and looked at her from head to toe. He made no attempt to hide his disbelief. "Participate in what, daughter?" "The challenge." "I came to tame the horse." The man stood still for about 2 seconds, as if waiting for her to say it was a joke. When he realized it wasn't, he let out a loud laugh and turned sideways. "Folks, Mr. Rahman's daughter wants to tame thunder." The laughter spread like fire through dry straw. First those nearby, then those who heard it secondhand, then those who didn't even know what it was about but laughed because everyone else was laughing. Marcus dropped the toothpick he was chewing, looked Aisha up and down, and spat on the ground before speaking, loud enough for the entire audience to hear. "Go home, girl. Go tend to your ponies. That's what you know how to do. This is a place for men." Another rider in the group added, "Soon children will want to ride too." The laughter doubled. Aisha felt her face burn. Her eyes stung, but she clenched her jaw and didn't let a tear fall. "Not there. Not in front of them." The noise attracted Mr. Tan's attention from the platform. He leaned over, asked something to the man beside him, and when they explained that Mr. Rahman's daughter wanted to participate in the challenge, he paused for a moment. Then he slowly descended the platform steps, adjusted his cap, and walked towards Aisha. The crowd parted. Silence fell as he approached. Mr. Tan stopped in front of Aisha, looked at her with that gaze everyone in Kranji knew, the gaze of someone evaluating something and having already decided it wasn't worth the price. He crossed his arms and spoke slowly, loud enough for every person there to hear every syllable. "Listen here, my daughter. I brought the best trainers in this country. Men with 30 years of experience. People who charge $5,000 a day. None succeeded. None. And now you, a girl who rides an old, nondescript pony, think you're going to do what exactly?" He paused, looked around, confirming everyone was paying attention. They were. "I'll tell you something, and it's not to offend, it's to protect you. You don't have the stature for this. You don't have the strength, you don't have the experience. Go home, girl. This isn't a game, it's not a place for you." The crowd applauded. They clapped, whistled, as if he had said the most sensible thing in the world. Some looked at Aisha with pity, as if she were a child who had just made a fool of herself. And Aisha felt her whole body tremble, not from fear, but from rage. A rage that rose from her stomach and tightened her throat, but she took a deep breath once, twice. She looked directly into Mr. Tan's eyes and spoke with a firmness that surprised even herself. "You promised the challenge was open. You didn't set conditions for age, size, or gender. If I get hurt, it's my responsibility, but I will enter that paddock." Mr. Tan's smile died. His eyes narrowed. He leaned towards Aisha, close enough for her to smell the coffee on his breath, and spoke in a tone that sounded like advice but was a threat. "When you fall, and you will fall, don't say I didn't warn you." He turned his back and went back up to the platform. The crowd started talking again, laughing, commenting. Aisha stood there with the rope in her hand and the gula melaka in her pocket, hearing the laughs like slaps, but she didn't leave. She gave her name to the organizer, who wrote it down, shaking his head with the look of someone noting the name of a person who would regret it. And she went to the side of the paddock, alone, away from everyone, to wait her turn. Because before entering that paddock, Aisha would have to watch something. She would see, one by one, the strongest and most experienced men in that region enter confidently and leave on the ground. And each fall would make everyone there even more certain that she didn't stand a chance. The organizer climbed onto a crate beside the paddock with an old, crackling megaphone and announced the simple, direct rules. Each participant had up to 5 minutes to mount and control thunder. If they could ride the horse for 2 complete laps around the paddock without being thrown, they would win $50,000. If they fell or gave up, they would leave and give way to the next. No second chances, no complaints. The first to enter was a trainer from Pungul, a tall, thin man with a small moustache, who came with his own saddle, braided rope, and an air of someone who already knew the end of the story. He entered the paddock, walking firmly, looking Thunder in the eyes, trying to impose authority. The horse let him approach, let him place the rope, let him position the saddle, and the second the man put his body weight to mount, Thunder exploded. He spun his body so fast that the saddle flew sideways, and the trainer was thrown against the wooden fence. He hit his back, slid to the ground, and lay there breathless, mouth open, like a fish out of water. Two stable hands ran in to drag him out, while Thunder trotted to the other side of the paddock, shaking his head as if swatting a fly. The crowd shouted, booed, applauded. Mr. Tan watched from above without moving a muscle in his face. Aisha watched from the side alone, with her arms resting on the fence. She wasn't watching the spectacle like the others. She was watching the horse, the way he moved, the position of his ears, the rhythm of his breathing. And what she saw confirmed everything she had felt when she first heard the story. Thunder wasn't crazy, wasn't bad. He was a terrified animal who had learned that the only defense was attack. Every man who entered that paddock with a tight rope and the posture of someone who was going to win confirmed to the horse that the danger was real, and he reacted the only way he knew how. The second participant was a stable manager from Sembawang, strong, with hands that seemed made for gripping. He managed to mount. He held on for about 15 seconds, gripping the mane while Thunder bucked and spun, but the horse reared high, almost vertical, and the manager slipped backward, falling with such force that a cloud of dust rose. He left limping with a hand on his back. Third, fourth, fifth, one after another, Thunder threw them. Some lasted seconds, others couldn't even mount. A trainer from Serangoon tried to approach from the side, but Thunder spun, and the man went to the ground without understanding what had happened. He left needing support to walk. With each fall, Aisha observed more. She saw how Thunder reacted to noise, to quick movements, to the tension in the body of whoever approached. She saw that the horse became more agitated when they surrounded him, when they shouted, when they tried to corner him. And she saw that in the few seconds between one attempt and another, when he was alone in the paddock, Thunder calmed down, lowered his head, snorted more slowly, even relaxed his ears. The problem wasn't the horse. The problem was what people did when they approached him. After 10 attempts, the public's mood had changed. In the beginning, it was fun, laughter, cheering. Now it was tension. A young man, no older than 25, entered bravely and left supported by two stable hands, unable to walk steadily. That's when Marcus Lim stood up, adjusted his cap, spat on the ground, and announced for anyone who would listen, "Enough of this nonsense. Now a real man is entering this paddock." His small group clapped. Some people whistled. Marcus entered with a long stride, chest puffed out, looking at Thunder as one looks at a challenge already won before it even began. Aisha gripped the fence, not because she was rooting for Marcus, but because she knew what was going to happen. Marcus approached too quickly, tried to throw the rope around Thunder's neck with a sudden movement. The horse dodged, spun, and charged with its chest, almost knocking Marcus down before he even tried to mount. Marcus staggered, regained his balance, and tried again, this time grabbing the mane with both hands and leaping. He managed to get on. The crowd shouted for 3 seconds. Marcus was mounted on Thunder. 3 seconds. Thunder lowered his head, locked his front legs, and delivered a kick with his hind legs so violent that Marcus flew over the horse's neck, somersaulted in the air, and fell face first into the dust. His cap went one way, the rope the other. Marcus lay on the ground for about 5 seconds, dazed, until the stable hands entered to pull him out. He got up red with shame and dust, limping with his shirt torn at the shoulder. When he left the paddock, he passed near Aisha and, for the first time since she arrived, couldn't look her in the eyes. He lowered his head and walked on. More attempts, 15, none succeeded. The paddock was already marked with hoof prints, scrapes on the fence, full marks in the dirt. The smell of sweat and fear was so strong you could feel it from afar. Thunder trotted from side to side, panting with his body covered in foam. Each attempt left him more alert, more aggressive, more closed off. Mr. Tan watched from above with a grim face. The fun had ended long ago. This was no longer a spectacle. It was a message the horse was sending to everyone there. No one controls me. And with each passing minute, the $50,000 on the table seemed more secure. The organizer looked at the ledger. Only one name remained. He picked up the megaphone and announced with a voice that mixed weariness and incredulity, "Last participant, Aisha Rahman." The noise of the estate suddenly dropped. Conversation stopped, laughter died. A strange silence settled, heavy like the sky before a monsoon. Everyone turned to look at the thin girl leaning against the side fence, with a simple rope in her hand and an oversized plaid shirt. Marcus, still with dust on his clothes and his pride in tatters, shouted loudly, "I bet $100 she doesn't last 10 seconds." Some people laughed, but it was nervous laughter, mixed with curiosity, because deep down, after seeing 16 men go down, everyone wanted to see what that girl would do. Aisha let go of the fence, took a deep breath, felt her heart pounding in her chest, but her hands were steady. She walked to the paddock gate. The organizer opened it, and Aisha entered. Thunder stopped trotting instantly. He turned his head towards her, ears perked, body tensed, dark eyes fixed on that small figure that had just entered his territory. And then, Aisha did the only thing none of the 16 men before her had done. Absolutely nothing. Aisha stopped about 10 meters from Thunder and stood there, breathing. The rope hung loosely in her hand, almost touching the ground. Her arms relaxed at her sides, her face calm, her eyes downcast, looking at the ground a little in front of her own feet. She didn't advance, didn't shout, didn't wave the rope, didn't make a single gesture that could be read as a threat. Thunder froze. His ears rotated forward, then sideways, like antennae, trying to pick up a signal that didn't fit anything he knew. With the others, the pattern was always the same. The human entered, body tense, the smell of fear and adrenaline, quick movements, the rope tightening, the attempt at control. Thunder knew how to read all of this and knew how to react. But that figure, standing in the middle of the paddock, followed no pattern, had no tension, no haste, no fear, and this confused the animal in a way no force had managed. The crowd fell silent for about 10 seconds. Then came the comments. "What is she doing?" Frozen with fear. Marcus loudly interjected. "Didn't I tell you?" She just stood there. "That's not even an attempt," someone shouted. "Mount him already, girl," scattered laughs. But Aisha heard none of it. The outside world had disappeared. There was only her and the horse, the paddock, the dust, the sound of Thunder's breathing. Strong, fast, suspicious. That's what Aisha was focused on, his breathing, because breathing tells everything. Aisha began to walk, not directly towards him, but in a semicircle, slowly, maintaining the same distance, her eyes always downcast. She didn't confront, she asked for permission. She showed her body sideways, her low posture, her predictable movements, 1 minute, 2, 3. The public's impatience grew. People shifted in their seats, exchanged glances, crossed their arms. Mr. Tan leaned on the platform, squinting, trying to understand what was happening. It didn't look like a challenge. It didn't look like courage. It looked like a girl lost in the middle of a paddock, not knowing what to do. But then someone near the fence noticed something and nudged their neighbor. And the neighbor nudged the next, because Thunder had stopped pawing the ground. His snorting was decreasing. The horse, who with others would attack in the first few seconds, had been there for over 3 minutes and hadn't advanced once. His ears, which would be flattened back when someone entered, a sign of aggression, were now turned forward in Aisha's direction. Confusion replaced impatience. People stopped complaining and began to observe, because something was happening there that didn't fit anything they had seen all day. Aisha felt the change. Thunder's breathing spaced out. His neck, which had been rigid, began to relax. Aisha took a step towards him, a small one. She waited. Another step. She waited. Thunder turned his head towards her, not with aggression, but with curiosity, with that look of an animal trying to decide if it could trust. His dark eyes fixed on Aisha, and for a moment, the two stood completely still, connected by something no one there could see or name. Aisha took the gula melaka from her pocket, extended her hand slowly, palm open. The sweet smell spread in the hot air of the paddock. Thunder raised his head, nostrils dilating. He caught the scent and took a step towards Aisha. The crowd held its breath. Another step, closer. At the fence, Marcus crossed his arms and muttered, 10 seconds. Someone beside him replied, 5. Aisha didn't move. Her hand extended, steady, her breathing controlled. Thunder was 4 meters away, then 3, and then it happened. Thunder surged forward, sudden, violent, head down, hooves pounding the earth, raising dust. The crowd let out a gasp. A woman covered her mouth, another turned her face away. Mr. Tan stood up from his chair. Everyone thought it was over. But Aisha didn't retreat, didn't run, didn't scream, didn't close her eyes. She stayed exactly where she was, with her hand extended, the gula melaka in her palm, her feet planted in the earth like the roots of an old tree, her whole body trembling inside, her heart exploding in her chest, but outwardly, firm and unmoving. Suddenly, Thunder braked less than a meter from her. His hooves skidded on the earth, raising dust. The horse snorted heavily, nostrils flared, chest rising and falling, his eyes fixed on hers. And for the first time, Aisha looked back, directly, without fear. The two stood there, face to face, separated by less than an arm's length. The silence in the paddock was so heavy you could hear the wind. No one breathed, no one moved. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Then, slowly, so slowly that at first no one noticed, Thunder lowered his head, not with force, not with defeat, but with something that greatly resembled relief. His muzzle descended to Aisha's hand, sniffed the gula melaka, sniffed her palm, sniffed her fingers. The warm air from his nostrils brushed her skin. Aisha felt tears welling up, but held them back. Not yet. Thunder took the gula melaka, began to chew slowly, with that soft sound of large teeth grinding sugar. While he chewed, Aisha raised her other hand and touched his neck, lightly, almost without weight, a touch that asked for permission instead of taking control. The horse trembled. Every muscle in his body contracted for an instant, as if he were about to explode again. The crowd froze, but Thunder did not pull away. He stood there chewing, feeling that touch that did not hurt, that did not pull, that demanded nothing. Aisha began to caress him slowly, her hand moving up and down his dark neck, feeling the warmth of his coat, the strong pulse beneath his skin, and began to murmur, low words, so low that even she herself didn't know if she was speaking or just breathing with sound. No one in the audience could hear what it was, but Thunder heard, and with each word his body relaxed a little more. The entire estate was silent. No one laughed, no one shouted, no one quite knew what they were feeling, but everyone felt something. And what came next would transform that silence into something no one there would ever forget for the rest of their lives. Aisha rested her forehead on Thunder's neck, closed her eyes, felt the warmth of his coat against her skin, the strong pulse beneath the surface, the smell of sweat and earth that came from the animal's body. She stood there breathing with him slowly, deeply, chest against fur, 2 breaths, seeking the same rhythm. Thunder did not move. His hooves, which all day had pounded the ground with rage, were still. His tail, which had whipped the air every time someone approached, hung loose. The animal's entire body, which for hours had been a machine of defense, was still, not tense, not ready to attack, truly still, as if for the first time that day, perhaps for the first time in a long time, Thunder had found a reason not to fight. In the audience, no one spoke. It wasn't the silence of shock, nor of expectation. It was the silence of those who are seeing something they don't understand, but know is important. A woman squeezed her husband's hand without realizing it. An old man took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. Even Marcus was quiet, with his arms hanging loosely and his mouth slightly open. Aisha opened her eyes, slowly raised her head, and stood beside Thunder, her hand still on his neck. With her other hand, she took the rope that hung over her shoulder and in a slow, almost in slow motion, passed it around the horse's neck, without tightening, without pulling. She just placed the rope there loosely, as if it were another touch, and not a tether. Thunder felt the weight of the rope and moved his head sideways, testing. Aisha did not react, did not pull. She waited. The horse shook his head once, snorted softly, and accepted. Then came the moment no one there thought possible. Aisha positioned herself beside Thunder, her left hand holding his mane, her right resting on the animal's back. Her whole body was pressed against his, feeling every tremor, every muscle contraction. She took a deep breath, and, in a calm and firm movement, without leaping, without haste, she mounted. She mounted Thunder, without a saddle, without spurs, without stirrups, just her legs embracing the horse's body, her hands holding the mane, her torso slightly inclined forward. The entire crowd held their breath at the same time. Hundreds of people with air caught in their chests, eyes wide, waiting for the explosion. Because that's what had happened all day. Someone mounted, Thunder exploded. It was a matter of seconds. Thunder felt the weight, took 2 nervous steps sideways, shook his head, pawed the ground. Someone let out a muffled gasp. Thunder lowered his head, arched his back, and made to rear. The muscles of his hind legs contracted. This was it. Aisha did not squeeze her legs, did not pull the mane, did not panic. She did the opposite of what instinct commanded. She relaxed her body, relaxed her shoulders, lowered her center of gravity, leaned her torso, and rested her face on Thunder's neck, and murmured something. No one in the audience heard what it was. Perhaps it wasn't even a word. Perhaps it was just a sound, a breath, a vibration that passed from Aisha's mouth to the horse's ear, and from there to his entire body. But the effect was immediate. Thunder stopped, his hind legs relaxed, His back returned to its normal position. The rearing motion died before it began. The horse snorted one last time, long, strong, as if he were releasing everything he had held in all day, all the attempts, all the aggression, all the fear. And he began to walk slowly. One step, another, carefully, as if testing what it meant to have someone on him without it hurting. Aisha accompanied his every movement with her body, without forcing direction, without pulling anything, just balancing her weight, adjusting with the light pressure of her legs, indicating the way, with the almost invisible touch of her hands on his mane. One lap around the paddock. Thunder walked along the fence, passing in front of the audience, who watched with moist eyes and open mouths. Each step was more confident than the last. The horse's head lowered, his neck relaxed. His trot became lighter. 2 laps. On the second pass in front of Mr. Tame's platform, Thunder was already moving at a gentle, almost elegant trot, as if showing everyone there what he could be when someone treated him with respect instead of force. The silence lasted a few more seconds after Aisha completed the second lap and stopped Thunder in the center of the paddock. A simple touch of her hand on his mane and a light pressure with her heels was all it took. The horse stopped calm, obedient, gentle. Then, a woman in the audience began to cry. Not crying softly, hidden, but crying with sobs, loudly, with both hands over her face, as if everything she had held in all afternoon, the tension, the fear, the emotion of seeing that girl do the impossible had burst out at once, and she began to clap at the same time, clapping wet with tears. Another person joined, and another. In seconds, the entire estate was on its feet. Hundreds of people shouting, applauding, crying, hugging each other. Men who had laughed at her clapped with red eyes. Women who had turned away during the charge now couldn't stop looking. And at the estate entrance, far from everything, Mr. Rahman heard. At first, he thought it was booing, that it had gone wrong, that his daughter had fallen. His heart tightened in a way that made him think he would collapse right there. But then he realized that noise wasn't booing. It was applause. A huge, growing applause that wouldn't stop. Mr. Rahman began to walk, then to quicken his pace, then to run with trembling legs. When he got close enough to see the paddock, he saw Aisha mounted on Thunder, the horse standing still, calm, his daughter, the girl he raised alone, mounted on the animal that no man in that region had managed to tame. Mr. Rahman's legs gave way, not from tiredness, but from everything. He fell to his knees on the earth, covered his face with his hands, and cried as he hadn't cried since the day he lost Zaitan. He cried with relief, with pride, with longing for the wife who said that girl would surprise the world. Aisha dismounted, stroked Thunder's neck one last time, and walked towards the paddock exit. The crowd parted. People moved away as if she were someone they had just met for the first time, although they had known her since childhood. And on the platform, Mr. Tame stood, his throne-like chair behind him, empty, his cap in his hand, pressed against his chest. The pose of the owner of the world had disappeared. He looked at that girl leaving the paddock, and his face held an expression no one in Kranji had ever seen on the richest man in the city. The expression of someone who knows he made a mistake, and what he was about to do next, no one there expected. Mr. Tame descended the platform steps slowly. The crowd opened a path, and silence fell again. Not the silence of tension, but a silence of anticipation. Aisha stood at the paddock exit, with the rope on her shoulder and dust on her clothes. When she saw Mr. Tame approaching, she straightened her body. That man had said in front of hundreds of people that she wasn't up to it, that she should go home, and now he was walking towards her with his cap pressed against his chest. Mr. Tame stopped in front of Aisha. The two looked at each other. He, owner of everything to the horizon. She, owner of an old pony and a small rented room that barely allowed them to survive. And there, at that moment, their statures inverted. Mr. Tame raised his voice. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The silence was so complete that a whisper would have reached the last row. But he spoke loudly anyway, because he wanted every person there to hear every word. I owe this young lady an apology. The estate remained motionless. This morning, when she arrived here and said she was going to enter that paddock, I laughed, not alone. I laughed along with everyone. I said it wasn't a place for her. I said she wasn't up to it. I said she would fall. And I was wrong. His voice faltered for a second. He swallowed hard, squeezed his cap harder, and continued. I brought the best trainers money could buy, men with 30 years in the field. Each of them entered that paddock trying to defeat the horse with force, and each one fell to the ground. He looked at Aisha, looked into her eyes truly, as he hadn't all day. This girl was the only one who didn't try to win. She was the only one who tried to understand, and she was the only one who succeeded. He paused for a long time. Today I discovered that I wasn't the owner of the horse. I was the owner of my pride, and my pride is worth nothing. A murmur ran through the audience. Someone began to clap, but Mr. Tan raised his hand, asking for silence. He wasn't finished. He walked to the table where the stacks of money were, took the 50,000 with both hands. Andre tonto Aisha, extended the money to Vorcher. This is yours. As promised, in front of Everione. As promised. Aisha looked at the money. Her hands trembled when she took the stacks. 50,000. The weight of it in her hands was much more than paper. It was the roof that would no longer leak. It was her father's medicine. It was the debts paid off. It was proof that she wasn't crazy for having come. But Mr. Tan still wasn't finished. I want to make a proposal here, now, in front of everyone, so no one can say I went back on my word later. He looked at Aisha and spoke firmly. I want you to be responsible for all the horses on my estate. Fixed salary, full benefits, paid every month into your account. You understand horses more than anyone I've ever met, and I'm not foolish enough to let that go. The crowd began to murmur, louder. Mr. Tan turned and searched for someone with his eyes. He found Mr. Rahman, who was a few meters behind Aisha, his face still wet and his legs trembling. Mr. Rahman, you too, if you wish. There's work here and accommodation to be near a doctor when you need one, instead of pretending everything is fine. Mr. Rahman opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He just shook his head slowly, his eyes overflowing. Then, Mr. Tan turned to the crowd, looked for a specific face, and found it. Marcus was in the middle of the people, with his torn shirt, dust on his trousers, and his gaze on the ground. Marcus, look at me. Marcus raised his head, red-faced. You told this girl to go home and tend to her ponies. You said this was a place for men. So, tell me something. How many laps did you make around that paddock mounted on Thunder? Marcus didn't answer. There was nothing to answer. Mr. Tan looked at the rest of the crowd, and this applies to everyone who laughed today, including me, especially me. He paused. Underestimating a person by their appearance says much more about who judges than about who is judged. I learned that today, and I am 72 years old. It's never too late to be ashamed of yourself. The audience exploded in applause that was different from the previous ones. It wasn't applause for a spectacle, it was applause of respect. People clapped with tear-filled eyes, nodding their heads, swallowing the lump in their throats. Aisha felt her father approach from behind. Mr. Rahman hugged her with both arms, tightly, trembling, unable to say anything. He didn't need to. Aisha rested her head on her father's chest and closed her eyes. She smelled the earth and coffee that Mr. Rahman always carried, and for a second, just for a second, she felt as if her mother was also there. In the following weeks, the Rahman's life changed in a way Aisha never thought she would see. With the $50,000, she paid off her father's 3 overdue utility bills, repaired the roof of their HDB flat, replaced the old water heater, and took Mr. Rahman to the doctor. The tests he had put off for years were done. Nothing serious, but he needed daily medication and follow-up. With the estate salary, Aisha ensured that they would never lack again. Thunder became the most loyal horse on the property. He obeyed the stable hand's commands when necessary, but only became fully calm with one person. When Aisha arrived in the morning and opened the paddock gate, Thunder trotted towards her before any other horse. The stable hands stopped trying to understand. They just accepted it. Starlight earned a place in the estate's pasture with good shade and fresh grass. She lived her last years with the comfort she deserved. Aisha visited her every day and talked to her as she always had. Mr. Tan didn't change overnight. People with 70 years of pride don't become another person instantly. But that Saturday left a deep mark on him, the kind that burns, the kind that makes a man lie awake at night, unable to sleep, because he hears his own voice saying, "This isn't a place for you," to a girl who had just done what no man could. He started greeting people on the street, started saying good morning to his employees, started asking how their children were, if they needed anything. When someone asked what had happened to him, he would only reply, "A girl taught me something that 70 years of life had not." And in Kranji, Aisha's story didn't make it to the newspapers, didn't appear on television, but everyone knows. And every time someone doubts a person for being young, for being a woman, for being poor, for seeming too small for too big a challenge, someone remembers that sunny, dusty Saturday. They wanted to conquer the horse. She wanted to understand.